Hey friends, I hope your week is off to a great start. Tonight we're going to be making an easy springtime pasta. This is my dinner for Monday night, so we're going to be making it together. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. First up, I've got all my veg washed here. So I've got a pound of asparagus, and we're going to cut this into about 1-inch pieces. So kind of funny story about this video tonight. I had planned on doing something completely different. If you saw my post in the communities tab, you'll know that I lost my footage for the video that I was planning on doing, and so now here we are. This recipe is not a Bon Appetit recipe. This is actually from my grocery service food kick. I was doing my grocery shopping this morning. I was fortunate to get a delivery slot. And as I was scrolling through the app, I saw this pasta recipe. It had all of the ingredients right below, so it was super handy to just add everything to my cart really quickly, and I had that delivered today. So not a sponsored post, just really happy with the Food Kick delivery service. So I'm doing about 1-inch pieces. This is not exactly right. I'm cutting on a slight bias because I thought that would look just a little bit nicer than cutting just blunt ends. These asparagus are quite a bit thicker than what I would typically prefer. I normally like them about maybe the size of like maybe a thick pencil or something. These are a little bit thick, but I think that they'll taste okay. So as I said, that's 1 pound in total. The recipe did call for snap peas, which I wasn't able to get this morning. So I'm leaving those out. Instead, I doubled up on my Fiddlehead Ferns. So I have never had Fiddlehead Ferns before. I think they look super, super cool. These are apparently a springtime thing. They grow out of the ground and eventually will kind of unfurl, and it'll be a fern, like the plants you see growing on the ground. However, these are edible and apparently very tasty. The recipe called for half a pound of these. I doubled up, so I've got a full pound of this to make up for my lack of snap peas. So I'm just gonna cut the little tips off here and then pop these onto my plate with all the asparagus. So I always think it's fun to actually, cook dinner on a weeknight. It feels like a little bit more of a treat than just eating like your meal prepped food or getting takeout or, having a salad or whatever. All of those things are great, but there's something about like actually cooking dinner on a weeknight that feels like almost like the weekend, like you're taking a little bit of time for yourself, you're doing something kind of fun. So this is a fun experience for me. I'm enjoying it. What about you, though? Do you do cooking on weeknights, or is that reserved for weekends only? Let me know in the comments down below what your weekday routine looks like. All right, cool. So I've got the Fiddlehead Ferns all cleaned up. So I'll pop this on my plate. These are the veg that are going to get sautéed, so I'm putting those on a transportable surface. Next up, let's do the veg that we'll eat raw. So we're going to finish this pasta with both basil and green onions. So I'm going to go ahead and get these chopped up. And the recipe calls for a 1/4 cup of sliced scallions. Obviously, I'm doing a little bit more than a 1/4 cup here. However, I've got leftover scallions from when I made Sola's triple threat onion galette last weekend. And you know how I feel about wasting food. So rather than letting these scallions go to waste, I figured I'd just chop them all up and go a little bit heavy in this recipe tonight. And again, I'm slicing these on a little bit of a bias. I just think that looks nicer than blunt cut coins. However, do whatever you want to do. All right, cool. So we've got our scallions all ready to go here. So I'll pop these into my bowl. This will be the raw veg bowl. And then last is basil, and we're looking for a 1/2 cup of chopped basil. So I'm going to just pick these leaves off here and get them all stacked up. We'll probably do just a little chiffonade because why not be a little fancy on a Monday night? So I'm stacking the leaves all up, then rolling this up kind of tightly, and then I'm just cutting across, and this will make the nice little ribbons. So there you can see I've got some nice little ribbons. That'll be a little bit prettier than just a basic chop. I mean, if we're already getting everything out and cutting, why not go the extra mile? All right, and the last bit we need to do is to chop up some garlic. So I've got 4 cloves here, 1 big guy and a couple little ones. So the recipe calls for, I think, 3. And then we're just finally chopping the garlic. So nothing too exciting going on here. So we've got everything prepped. Now we can go to the stove and get cooking. So over at the stove, I've got a large pot of water up to the boil. I've got this heavily salted. And now we can go ahead and add in our pasta. So I've got 1/2 pound of pasta here. And this is going to cook for 12 minutes. Give this a little stir and put the lid back on just to get it back to the boil quickly. And I'm using this calamari ricotta. I like the shape of it. The outside looks like it's going to hug sauce really well. Here in a 10-inch saute pan, I've got 2 tablespoons of butter, and we're going to melt this down over medium-high heat. And once this is melted and starting to bubble, we can add in our chopped garlic. Butter looks all melted, so I'm going to add in our garlic here. And we're going to cook this just till it starts to get a bit fragrant, so probably 1 to 2 minutes. All right, and that garlic is just starting to sizzle. So now we can go ahead and add in our prepped vegetables. So this is quite a lot for the pan, but it's the only pan I got, so we're going to make it work. And I'm going to do my best to just stir these around, get everything coated, get it down to the heat. This should take about 5 to 6 minutes to cook. We're really just looking to get that raw taste off everything and get it to soften up a bit. Not a man overboard. I'm going to season these up with a little bit of kosher salt and then lots of black pepper. And we're going to be putting quite a lot of Parmesan cheese into this, so you don't need to go too heavy on the salt, but I think you can go a little bit heavier on the pepper because it'll be able to hold up against all of the saltiness and the fattiness from the cheese. Going on a rescue mission. Seriously, I don't like wasting food. I cleaned my stove today too, so you might not be able to tell, but it is freshly cleaned. After about 3 minutes of cooking the veg, it's starting to kind of brighten up in color. I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but it is looking much more of a bright green versus that kind of dull green that it was previously, so this is nice. And so the vegetables have been cooking for about 6 minutes at this point. I want to check them with a fork and just see how these are coming up. This still feels quite firm, but we'll give it a bite. It's good. It could be cooked a little bit more, though. It's still quite snappy. So I'm going to let these keep going, actually, while we finish the pasta. Cook time on the veg is going to vary considerably, depending what vegetables you have in here specifically. So if you have the snap peas, those will probably cook up quicker than the super thick asparagus that I've got. Likewise, if your asparagus is thin, it'll probably cook up more quickly. In retrospect, I probably could have added the asparagus first, cooked that a bit, then added the Fiddlehead Ferns. Since they are a smaller diameter, they're probably going to be a little bit softer to the tooth versus the asparagus, but I think it's all going to be okay. And our pasta supposedly has 1 minute left, so I set it for a little bit less than the 12-minute cook time. Going to give this a taste and just see if we're at al dente or if it needs a bit more. That's actually perfect. So I'm going to drain this off, but first saving some pasta water. Just in case we need it. Got about 3/4 of a cup here. All right, so pasta back into the hot bowl. So now in here we've got a cup of Parmesan cheese. This is Parmigiano Reggiano. We've also got 6 ounces of ricotta cheese. And we'll stir these around to get everything kind of incorporated. All right, let's go ahead and add in our cooked veg. Trying to get all those brown bits off the bottom. That looks really nice. This is smelling so delicious and cheesy. It looks nice and creamy too. May need to add a little bit of pasta water here. It's looking kind of tight and gooey, maybe in a too gooey situation. If there is such a thing as too gooey, we may be on the borderline here. Before I adjust with pasta water, let's go ahead and add in the basil and the scallions. Yeah, I think that's looking just a bit too gooey for me, so we'll put in a splash of pasta water. And with all the cheese in this sauce, it's definitely going to tighten up as it sits. So I'm going to thin it down a bit more than I might necessarily think I need to. I just don't want this to get really gummy. I learned that when I made the pasta al limone that Molly Baz did. My sauce tightened up quite a bit once it cooled down some. And I love the way that this is looking. So we're going to go ahead and plate this up and then we're ready to eat. All right, and this is the finished product. So you can see that the sauce is nice and glossy, really thick, hugging the noodles, hugging the vegetables. I finished this off with a little bit of cracked black pepper and a little bit more grated Parmesan cheese. And the fragrance here is incredible. It smells super, super cheesy, a little bit of garlic aroma in there. I'm just dying to give this a taste. So let's get a bite here with some noodle, some asparagus, and let's see. Wow. The asparagus is perfectly cooked. Really glad we gave it a little bit of extra time. really kind of firm but tender at the same time. It's perfectly cooked. The pasta could have been a bit more al dente. I'll get that next time. Flavor of the sauce, very creamy from the ricotta cheese in there, a little bit salty, a little bit nutty from the Parmesan. It's almost like, not really like mac and cheesy, but it's as cheesy and kind of creamy as that is. Let's go for a Fiddlehead Ferns. So here's this little guy. Very crunchy and crispy. Kind of reminds me texture-wise of asparagus, actually. So that's a little bit surprising. Given the appearance of it, I thought it was going to be really like earthy and grassy. Oh, here's a bigger guy. Let's see about this one. A little bit more of a grassy flavor. Really nice though, very pleasant. So yeah, overall, I mean, weeknight pasta, this came together super quickly, really tasty. This is definitely a lot of vegetables in here. This is, I think, 2 pounds of vegetables and it feeds 4 people. So really good serving of springtime vegetables along with some creamy indulgence from 2 types of cheese. But overall, super happy. Definitely will add this to my springtime roster. So if you're in the mood to mix up your weeknight dinner time routine, this recipe A+. If you can get the ingredients, definitely give it a go. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.